Back in May of 2024, I tried to complete Universal Orlando in just one day. Did I do it? How did I go about doing it? How much did it cost? Was it worth it? Would I do it again? Should you do this? I'll answer these questions later on, but first, we need to go back. So I took my family on the classic 2-week Disney trip. We stayed on property at the All-Star Movies Resort, which was pretty good actually. Fortunately, before we went, I made a deal with my wife that we could tag each other out for one full solo day at the Universal parks. No kids, no pushchairs, no spouses, alone. Just one full day alone to try and conquer both Universal Studios and Islands of Adventure. I'd also managed to persuade her that we needed to splash out on express passes to make sure we could do everything that we wanted. Let me take you through my experience of that fateful day with a sprinkle of handy tips and a full breakdown of the cost of the day, and you can decide whether you think it's worth it. So join me and find out if I managed to do Universal Orlando in just one day. Little did I know that fate seemed to be against me. And as I had unknowingly booked my tickets for the 27th of May, which is Memorial Day, the parks would be much busier than normal. I had 11 hours from when the park opened at 9 AM until 8 PM to get as much done as I could. I pre-bought my tickets and express passes for the day through the official Universal app. I found that this was actually the cheapest way to book those tickets at the time of booking, and I had the benefit of being able to collect the tickets from the will call kiosks, but more on that later. The day started super early at about 6 AM, where I got up, had a shower, got dressed, had breakfast, and headed out to the All-Star reception, where I got into my pre-booked Uber and headed off for Universal. I arrived at the Uber drop-off, which is located on the top floor of the giant multi-storey car park here. I then made my way down to go through security. Tip number 1, only pack the essentials. I had my wallet, my phone, my smartwatch, and a sandwich bag to keep things dry on the water rides, just in case. I made my way down to the will call kiosks, which are here, and collected my tickets. Bear in mind that if you do this, you will need the card that you use to buy your tickets to collect them from the automated machine. Now, as I wasn't staying on site, there was no early entry for me, so I headed back to Starbucks to grab a coffee. Then, at about 8:45, I headed down to the entrance of Islands of Adventure and joined the massive horde of people waiting to get in. As the ropes dropped, I quickly made my way to Hulk and jumped on straight away after putting my bits in a locker, as Hulk has metal detectors. I got on second row in less than a 5-minute wait, and came off with what can only be described as serious brain damage. What has happened to Hulk? I mean, it always seemed a bit rough, and that was kind of part of the charm, but this was ridiculous. It banged me about so much. I flat out refuse to ride Hulk again until this is sorted. So I wandered dizzy and battered over to Doctor Doom's Fearfall and literally walked straight on. And I love the view from the top of the towers, especially if you manage to get a side that overlooks the park. I then swung further around and again walked straight onto Spider-Man. This still remains one of my favourite all-time rides anywhere. I love the mixture of the practical effects and the screen effects in this, and I always have a great time. Then I tootled through Toon Lagoon and headed for Skull Island, Reign of Kong. I waited about 5 minutes for this and got front row on the right-hand side. The best side. Now, I've always been a bit disappointed in this ride, and I was kind of expecting more of the same, but this was the first time I'd ridden it since they got rid of the 3D glasses, and somehow it made it so much better. I really enjoyed it. You can see everything so much clearer, and you've not got anything on your face to distract you. And the giant animatronic at the end just looks fantastic without glasses on. It's a thumbs up from me on that one. Then I jumped into Jurassic Park, but River Adventure was temporarily closed, so I got in the queue for VelociCoaster. This is the ride I've been looking forward to for years, but the Express Pass queue was a bit of a letdown, as it only speeds things up before you get to the lockers, which are about halfway through the ride queue. Tip number 2, ask for the front row. By the station, when the guy asked me how many, I obviously said just one, but then I asked if I could queue for the front, and he said sure. Just note that they won't always say yes, so the guy behind me asked, and he said yes, but they then put out an announcement saying that no more specific front row requests, so give it a go, but don't be too disappointed if you can't get it. But I managed to get my first ride on VelociCoaster on the front row, and wow, what a ride. It is so smooth and fast, and I love the airtime in this ride. My absolute favourite bit is the rolling launch into the top hat. I was literally giggling like a little girl. And to be honest, I think the girl sat next to me probably thought I was a bit deranged. But it's now my new #1 coaster anywhere. I then hopped over to Hogsmeade and went on Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. Queued about 5 minutes for this one and came off really upset. The ride was the same as always, but I just got really bad motion sickness from the screen elements. I genuinely had to close my eyes in those parts and then open again after I passed. Oh, I did not feel good after this ride. I don't think the ride's changed, I think it's just me getting older, which is a bit depressing. So, to make myself feel a bit better, I grabbed a frozen butterbeer and went for a walk to try and clear my head. I will say now, the frozen butterbeer is the best butterbeer, and I will argue that point to the death. I ended up walking back through Zeus Landing, out of the park, past Toothsome, and into Universal Studios. So, after feeling a bit dodgy, I thought the obvious thing to do would be to go on Rip Ride Rocket, because why not? Queued for about 5 minutes again. Tip number 3. If you aren't aware, there is a secret menu that you can access to play a whole bunch of hidden songs on this ride. Basically, when you get in, press and hold the Rip Ride Rocket logo on the screen for about 10 seconds, then take your finger off. A number pad appears, and you need to enter a secret 3-digit code for whichever song that you want. I'll put the list in the description, but these may or may not work because I only ever choose the same song every single time, which is Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin. And FYI, that code is 113. I then mooched around the Revenge of the Mummy, one of my guilty pleasures. Bit of a queue for this one, surprisingly, at 20 minutes. And after this, I was getting a bit hungry, so I popped over to Mel's Drive-In and had a cheeseburger meal with a strawberry milkshake, and it was pretty good. Not awe-inspiring, but decent. I then nipped next door to the Tribute Store, which, if it's open, is an absolute must-do. When I went, it was a mixed theme of some of the classic Universal films. Back to the Future, Jaws, E.T. and Ghostbusters, and there's some absolutely awesome merch in there. I then sped over to Fast and Furious Supercharge, which I know a lot of you will probably say don't bother, but I've never ridden it before. And to be fair, the 35-minute wait for it wasn't really appreciated. I think enough about this ride has already been said, so I will just leave you with Giant Vin Diesel. And after that monstrosity, I braved the depths in the vaults of Harry Potter and the Escape from Gringotts. This was a 10-minute wait, and I always enjoy this ride. I then chased down a cephalopoid on foot to visit Men in Black Alien Attack. Straight walk on. And I've got a soft spot for this ride, and I just think it's really fun, to be honest. Out of there and straight through Springfield, skipping The Simpsons, as for me that is quite literally puketronic. Motion sickness central. I don't want to go on this ride ever again. Unfortunately, E.T. was down, so I ran down to Jason Bourne and managed to be the last person to get into that show. Perfect timing. Never seen it before, but I tell you what, I was absolutely blown away with this show. I hadn't really seen anything about it, but the way that they use the stage and that giant screen is just inspiring. Now, don't get me wrong, I would take Terminator 2 3D any day, but I am very happy with Jason Bourne. I just can't wait to see what they do with this technology next. After that, I had one more go on the Mummy, because it's my guilty pleasure, before I skipped back over to Islands of Adventure. I had a quick go on Cat in the Hat, because why not? I then jumped back over to Jurassic Park to finally get on River Adventure, which was a walk-on, and this ride and Spider-Man will always be what comes to my mind when I think of this park. I hope they never go, I love them to bits. I then had another turn on VelociCoaster and only queued for about 15 minutes, which is much more reasonable. Then came the time to see if my gamble would pay off. As you may or may not know, but getting express passes covers almost everything in both parks. but does not cover Hagrid's Magical Motorbike Adventure. So my choice was either try and get there first thing, but when I got into the park, there was a 150-minute queue for this ride. So I decided to leave it until about 7 PM. Now, this is a bit risky as sometimes they do shut the ride about an hour before closing, or if the ride goes down in that last hour, then it's not guaranteed to come back up. But I managed to queue for about 45 minutes. And I gotta say, I love the ride, but in all honesty, I don't know why, but I was a little bit disappointed. I think I was bigging it up to be something better than it is. Don't get me wrong, it's a great ride, but I am team VelociCoaster all the way. That is the best ride in this park. I came off the ride and sprinted back to VelociCoaster to try and get in the queue before 8 PM, because as long as you can get in the queue before the closing time, then you'll get to queue and go on the ride. And I missed it by about 30 seconds. Gutted. So I had a bit of a rest and wandered around the park as the sun was setting, taking some pictures and wishing I could have another frozen butterbeer. So I mooched back down to City Walk and decided to go and get a table at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. I sat upstairs at the bar, had sharing nachos to myself, with a margarita of course, and followed that up with a slice of key lime pie. Beautiful. I then nipped back out and took a few more pics before heading back to the Uber rank and got an Uber back to Disney All-Stars. I managed to get back at roughly 11 PM, some 16 hours after I'd left the room. So, a few questions then. How much did I do? How much did it all cost? Here's a breakdown of everything I spent, and remember, this was just for me. So, the single day 2-park ticket cost me $219. The Express Pass Unlimited actually cost me a staggering $249 for the single day. So with tax, they came to $499.48. My Uber there was $23 plus a $10 tip. My coffee was $4.46. My butterbeer was $9.50. My food at Mel's Drive-In was $20.76. My cool Universal Studios t-shirt was $35.15. I got a bottle of Coke for $5.33. And my epic food at Margaritaville was $70, including the tip. And finally, my Uber back to the hotel was $33 plus a $10 tip. So my grand total for the single day out on my own was $720.68.
You serious?
But was it worth it? For me, yes. Now, there was a lot at Universal which had changed since I last went, and I wanted to go and experience these, but also to go on my childhood favourites too. I had the mindset of, I'm only coming here once this year, and if I'm going, then I'm going to do it properly. Could I have done it cheaper? Yes. Could I have gotten everything done that I wanted to without express passes? No way, not a chance. On a quieter day, possibly, but I just happened to pick Memorial Day because that fit into my schedule the best. Would I do it again? Yeah, probably. I think it was worth the money for me. However, the big driving force with me choosing to do this was because we were primarily there on a Disney holiday, and my kids, who are 1 and 4 at the time, just wouldn't have been able to do that much at Universal. And to drag them around there for the whole day and take turns waiting with them wouldn't have been much fun, to be honest. So, yes, it was a lot of money, but for me, money well spent. Should you do the same? Well, that's up to you, really. I think if you've never been to Universal before, then unless you're really short on time or you have all the money in the world to burn, then I'd always recommend taking your time and do it over a few days, at least 1 day per park. But you should listen to your own instinct. If you want to do it but are worried about the money, just remember you can always earn more money. You can't earn more time. And as I'm getting a bit older now, I realise that you have to take opportunities. Seize the day. It really hit me this year as I came to the realisation that I'm going to never have another Florida trip with my parents. They've just gotten too old to travel that far. And it made me think that you never know when the last time you're going to be able to do something is. So please, do things when you can. Always go for one more ride. And on that rather unexpected philosophical bombshell, thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think of the day I had and if you think it was worth it. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. And as always, hopefully, I'll see you out there.